Gulf Breeze is one of those spots that so many of you who plan on relocating into this Pensacola metro area do end up choosing. It's amazing, Gulf Breeze. My family personally chose Gulf Breeze, but there are some cons to when we are going to cover that now. Same as I did last week covering the pros and cons of Pensacola, I like to approach this in a way that this isn't just stuff that you can just Google up and search, all right, what's the best things about Gulf Breeze? What's the worst things about Gulf Breeze? I want to give you my personal opinion based off just what I've seen living here, just experiencing the area, and that way it's not something that you could just kind of see everywhere else. I like to kind of give you a different scoop on things, really dig in and find something different that you're not hearing elsewhere. And with that, we're going to be covering 5 pros, and at the end of the video, we're going to be covering 5 cons, 5 things you might want to reconsider if you do want to relocate into the Gulf Breeze area. The first pro that we are going to cover is the fact that Gulf Breeze does seem like it's like 10 years behind. And I also going over a few of these topics I'm going to be talking about, discussing this. Some of it kind of feels like it's like 20 years behind. What do I mean by that? Because you might hear that and think that I'm talking about a con. 10 years behind? Who wants to live somewhere that's 10 years behind? That's not the fact when we're talking about Gulf Breeze though. And the thing that we noticed, the biggest thing is the culture. The culture in Gulf Breeze is amazing. Something that you might see in a lot of like smaller communities. And it does feel like it's a little bit behind. It's not up to date with the recent culture that the United States is experiencing in a lot of these larger cities. And that's something personally that we were driven to. We saw that and we wanted to be in that older culture, that more traditional culture that you do experience in these smaller towns. And let's kind of break in even further into that. So what we're talking about like kind of 10 years behind, 20 years behind. Culture, community, all those different things is like our kids right now, they can actually go and knock on doors, talk to their friends, let's go ride our bikes, let's do this. They're not talking to them over like video games or the internet or nothing like that. They get out just like I remember I did back in the 90s, knocking on doors, playing till the lights turn on, all the great things that we did as when we were kids. Our kids are now experiencing where we really didn't have much of that when we were living back in the larger city of Denver, Colorado. Another thing that we did notice when we first kind of experienced this area is we went to the restaurants and we realized, we were looking around and we're like, there are no kids on tablets, there are no kids on phones. Kids are out there playing. A lot of the restaurants here, they do have these little playgrounds so that kids can go out and play in them, and we're like, that's what we want. We don't want to stick our kids in front of a tablet inside of a restaurant and just sit there and just take in all this content. We didn't want that whatsoever. We want our kids outside, and with that, when we first saw that in the restaurants, like, this is pretty amazing. It's not what we were used to at all. And there's actually something that came up a couple weeks ago. So we had some friends who came here and they were visiting down in the 38 Destin area for the most part. And they're telling us what their kids are going through. They came from a large city of Chicago. And so they're telling us, like, as teenagers, what their kids are experiencing right now. And it was unreal what I was hearing. He was talking about how he bought this awesome house with a cool backyard with a pool and a hangout area. And he was just like, I bought this house expecting my kids to just be able to call their friends up and be like, hey, what's up? Come over, hang out by the pool. And his son was like, Dad, that's weird. We don't do that. We communicate over, I think it was Snap or something like that. You can't just call your friends up and invite them over. That you're gonna feel a little bit like a creeper if you are doing stuff like that. That's not necessarily the case here. You see kids all the time inviting each other over, hanging out. Yes, we do still have the e-bikes and the electric scooters and all that stuff, whatever, but kids are just getting together, hanging out, and if there is a pool, they always go to those pools. But I was a little surprised when I heard that in a larger city. We personally, our kids aren't near that old yet. We didn't experience that level of things yet, but it sounds like just socialization, just like personable, being next to each other face to face, is something that's really not that big anymore unless you're like communicating via Snapchat. The second huge pro that we did experience in this Gulf Breeze area is the youth sports. The youth sports has blown me away how involved the city, the county, and then also the parents are. It's seriously, if you are in one of these youth sports, you are constantly hanging out with the parents, you're constantly hanging out with the families, and just, it's like the sports. Every coach that I've seen is super dedicated to that kid, to making sure that it's a great team. And Gulf Breeze doesn't have the best sports in the area. Some of them they do. Like my son's lacrosse team, they're undefeated throughout the entire year, which is pretty freaking cool. So there's some sports that we are great at, but it's just that culture that you do create when you have these awesome youth sports programs, and then you have them in different areas too. So like Gulf Breeze proper, That's pretty much where you have Shoreline Park, where you have a bunch of sports over there. But then you also have down the highway, you have the Tiger Point area. And the reason that there's this kind of separation is they each have their own little sports complexes that whether you're doing rec ball or even a league ball, they have them in both of these different areas. And it's just on both sides of things, we have seen so much dedication, whether it's just like rec sports or also league sports. The coaches are super dedicated, and we have loved that so much. One more thing I want to hit on before I hit on this third pro is it is hard to find a family in the area or a kid that is not involved in some type of youth sport, whether it be gymnastics, lacrosse, football, baseball. It seems like all the kids are really kind of involved in something, if not multiple sports at the same time. And I just think that sports teach so many great values about leadership, about camaraderie to our kids. And so that's something that really appealed to us. And I think it is a huge pro when we are talking about Gulf Breeze, Florida. The third pro that we've talked about many times, and I slip it into videos from time to time. I try not to beat it down too much, but we have traditional values in Gulf Breeze. What does that mean? It means that a lot of that woke nonsense that we're trying to get away from in a larger city isn't really that present here. Okay, yes, occasionally you will run into the onesie and twosies, but we didn't have to constantly be like have a bubble around our kids, making sure they weren't exposed to the wrong things, making sure that they were raised with those more traditional values. Us personally, Judeo-Christian values, you know, we are in the Bible Belt, so you do have that so much more. Yeah, I've noticed on previous videos we have people in the comments saying now they're just like, you know, they're all a bunch of holy rollers over there and all this. It's just, guys, this whole area in the Gulf Breeze, we are just a lot more traditional in our values and what we believe, not really grasped onto this whole new woke ideology that personally we were running from when we moved into Gulf Breeze, Florida. The fourth pro, and this one is actually one of my favorites, is going to be the fact that Gulf Breeze is going to be cooler than the mainland when we are talking about Pensacola, Pace, and Milton. And it's because we consistently get a breeze over here. So when we're talking about Gulf Breeze and then also Navarre, we're out on this like peninsula, and we get that ocean breeze coming over us. So oftentimes, like in the middle of summer, there are times where it is way more humid, way warmer over in the mainland than it is in Gulf Breeze. Sometimes even like 5 degrees cooler in Gulf Breeze because we constantly have this breeze. And there's so many times that I went over into Milton, Pace, and Pensacola. Once you get over there in the dead heat of summer, it feels so much warmer, so much muggier over there. So we do appreciate the fact that we consistently have this breeze. Maybe that's why they named Gulf Breeze Gulf Breeze. It does seem like it makes that humidity a lot less severe as compared to what you're going to experience being on the mainland. Now the fifth one, and this one I constantly have to recheck myself, but then I go back and I'm like, okay, you've lived here for a few years now. You should know this. And the fact that and people come down here, they don't, like the one thing, the bears are like, you guys have bears here? Which is, okay, that's another story. But alligators, for the most part, we don't really have alligators in the Gulf Breeze area. It might be that we are surrounded by salt water in Gulf Breeze, but if there's an alligator sighting, it's all over news. It's not one of those things that people just like see day to day and all the time like you would in like Central and South Florida. Even up in like Milton and Pace, if you see an alligator, it's like, all right, cool, just be aware there's like an alligator over here. We just really don't get alligators over here, and so that's awesome. Okay, yes, we still get snakes, and I freaking hate snakes. Yeah, I hate snakes and spiders. So the two things, I act like a little girl. Not good, I know that, but we do not get much alligators, and so that's something that might be a huge pro when we are talking about Gulf Breeze, Florida. All right, there we go. I brought you 5 pros. Let's go ahead and break into those 5 cons. Before I do so though, guys, let's go ahead and break into, if you are planning on relocating into the Pensacola metro area, today we're talking about Gulf Breeze, give us a call or text at that phone number right below. Right below it there, we always answer. It doesn't matter day or time. But if you're not quite ready to purchase, just want to follow along, educate yourself, make sure you do so by smashing that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, notification bell, that way notified every single time we put out a brand new video. All right, the first con, and this one is probably the most obvious of all of them that I am going to cover, is the cost of living in Gulf Breeze is definitely more expensive as compared to a lot of the mainland cities, Pensacola, Pace, Milton. It's more expensive here, guys, whether we're talking about housing, whether we're talking about groceries. And according to bestliving.net, I always try to remember that website, Gulf Breeze is actually 26% more expensive than living in Pensacola. Quick note on that though is the majority of that is going to be your housing prices. So let's break into housing prices comparing Gulf Breeze over into Pensacola. The median sales price in Gulf Breeze on both products, so we're talking about your attached and then also your detached products, comes in at $469,000, and these numbers are based off of March of 2022. Now, if we go over into Pensacola, what is that median sales price over in Pensacola? You got a median sales price of $278,000. So that is a huge gap. Was it like a little bit more than a couple $100,000? Here's something else that you might want to look at though, is like if we are talking about your equity gain. So if we're comparing year to year, March of 2024 over into March of 2025, Gulf Breeze is going up, and it is going up by double digits. How much has it gone up? It's actually gone up 17.88% comparing March of 2024 to March of 2025. Where Pensacola, not so much. It's actually going down. Now, it's not going down by a lot, but it is still going down. And it has gone down 1.6% comparing March of 2024 to March of 2025. So yes, you are going to be paying more for a house in Gulf Breeze as compared to Pensacola. But if it's something that you can pull off, just know that it's becoming highly popular, and your equity gains might look a lot nicer in Gulf Breeze as compared to the Pensacola area. One other thing I wanted to dive into before I went on to the second con is groceries do seem like they're a little bit more expensive over in Gulf Breeze. I don't know if there's some charge of them having to go over the 3 Mile Bridge, a little bit more gas, I don't know. I just know that the grocery stores are definitely a little bit more expensive in Gulf Breeze as compared to Pensacola. The second con about Gulf Breeze is going to be eating out options. We do have whatever options that we do have in Gulf Breeze. They are great, but they are also limited. And so there's certain spots, you know, you hit them up for a couple months, like, all right, this is my favorite spot, Taco Rock, you know, Rio, all these great areas that we go to. But then after a certain amount of time, you're like, okay, I gotta get something different. I gotta get something new. And so usually we always go down to down in Navarre to experience some different restaurants down there. You can, of course, go over into Pensacola, some downtown areas over there. But it's just, you get to a point where you tried out all the food and you get a little sick of it, and there's not much more to choose outside of what you've already eaten. And so that might be a huge con if you do eat out quite a bit living in Gulf Breeze, Florida. The third con, all these are relative, right? So it's like, me personally, this is something that I see, I'm like, all right, this might be a con, this might be a pro, you might take it the opposite way, is the Gulf Breeze bubbles. What are the Gulf Breeze bubbles? And so I say bubbles plural, but really I think it's more Gulf Breeze bubble, and I'm talking about Gulf Breeze proper. If you are in Gulf Breeze proper, it is rare for them to leave the bubble unless they have to work in Pensacola or down the highway or anything like that. But there are these bubbles, and it does seem like there's a separation comparing like unincorporated Gulf Breeze to proper of Gulf Breeze. And it's unfortunate, you know, some people, it's no big deal. You know, we hang out with people from proper all the freaking time, same thing, they come down and hang out down the highway. But there are some people, it's like, it just as there's this status thing. We personally, we don't like it, but, and, you know, honestly, like, most people aren't affected by it. Most people, it is what it is. Everything's just location, you know, where you live. But there's definitely a separation there. It does seem like there's a little bit of a bubble over in proper, and this might be a huge con for Gulf Breeze, Florida. The fourth con, because this is actually something that I Googled, you know, I was like, are there beaches in Gulf Breeze? And the first thing that popped up was Oriole Beach, which is actually a community. It's not an actual beach, is we do not have really any public beaches. Now, you could go over to the Wild Naval Oaks, whatever, tongue twister, and find some beaches like on the bay on the backside, or then also the Sound on the front side. You're gonna have to do a little bit of hiking to get to them, but it's really not those public beaches that you're thinking about when you're thinking about like Pensacola Beach or Navarre Beach or Perdido Key. It just, we don't have that at all in Gulf Breeze. In fact, you have to cross over the bridge to get over into Pensacola. But the good thing about Gulf Breeze is it doesn't matter whether you're down the highway or in proper. You could easily get to the beach within like less than 20 minutes. If you're in proper, you could get there in like 5 minutes, unless it's tourist season, then you're gonna hit a little bit of traffic. But yeah, we just don't have those public beaches, those large, awesome beaches on the Gulf. And that's something that might be a con for you if that's something that you want to be super close to the beach or super close to the Gulf of America. The fifth con, and this one I think is heavy to me because I grew up in a large city, you know what I mean? This really wasn't a thing. It's like the majority of people in large cities are talking about like celebrities and all that crap or whatever. But the small town gossip, it is a thing here. Now, it's not severe. I've seen definitely places where it's like in Nebraska and Kansas where small town gossip's a thing. But just know that there are certain things, there's always like a running joke that our little group of friends has where it's like, if you do something, where like one time I had to strip down to my underwear to grab a chair out of the whatever, I'm not going to go too much in depth on that, is we're always like, uh-oh, watch out, it's going to end up on the Gulf Breeze mom's Facebook page. And so there is a little bit of small town gossip. If something major happens, it definitely gets all around. Everyone has their opinions on everything, but it's not as bad as like a lot of these smaller towns that I have seen. just know that there is a little bit of gossip being a smaller town, and you are definitely going to be running into people at the grocery store, all these different areas, and kind of be like, oh, hey, what's going on? You might think you could go to the grocery store and not see someone you know. Many times you're going to go to the grocery store and see someone that you know. All right, thank you so much for watching, guys. I greatly appreciate it. If you are looking at personal real estate here in the Emerald Coast, today we're talking about Gulf Breeze. Give us a call or text at that phone number right below. Right below it there. We always answer. It doesn't matter date or time, but if you're not quite ready to purchase, follow along, get in that discovery stage by smashing that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, notification bell. That way you're notified every single time we put out a brand new video. Did I say notify? I don't know. My everywhere today. Have a good one, guys. Till next time, we love you. Bye.